So I'm now in what I think of as the oldest part of the garden. It has some very strong lines in it, but the overall character of it is very informal, and plants are allowed to grow up in a quite haphazard way. This is a beautiful plant of wild fennel. This is the giant fennel, not the smaller one has in a kitchen garden. Amazing plant. This will grow up to about 7 or 8 feet. Does throw seedlings around all over the place. And so there are these strong formal lines in the garden, but then the planting itself is very informal. Here we're just catching the tail end of the magnolias, the ones that didn't get hammered by the frost. And you can see all the herbaceous plants coming up really strongly. Lots of white narcissi again. And from here we get a rather beautiful view back to the barn. And those are Irish yews, which sort of bring a feeling of almost the arts and crafts, which in many ways reflects the character of the barn, which is a 17th century building with a timber frame building. And the garden, the pattern of the garden here reflects that kind of sense of being rooted in the countryside and its traditions in a way. That doesn't mean that all my work is like that. This is a response to this particular place. So in this dazzling light, I'm looking over actually one of the most recent parts of the garden, which is the prairie. Doesn't look much now, but this is about an acre of largely North American plants seeded into a meadow. It features in the book. It's all very low and minimal at the moment. There's some cowslips sort of coming up in it. But later in the year, it's very beautiful and it's all around your ears. And this leads into a bit of the garden we call the chicken bank, which I'll take you to next. And it was called that because we used to keep chickens there. So I'm heading towards the chicken bank, which actually again is also more of a late summer part of the garden, but it's actually rather beautiful at the moment because it's full of these white narcissi. I often think it's better to do one thing really boldly rather than more things, which tend to be more muddled. So this is a narcissus called Thalia, and these rather lovely cloches are to protect the newly growing plants from deer, which are quite a problem in the garden. Lovely to see them, but not when they're eating all the plants. And I've just been planting some new things in here. I planted about 100 ambi major, which is actually an annual, but it gives a very light, frothy, sort of almost cow parsley feel to the garden. And I planted those at the weekend, so that's why the hose is out here, because we've been watering them in. Beautiful old oak tree on the edge of the garden with the sun behind it. So the last bit of the garden I want to show you is in fact the courtyard garden. And this was the first bit of garden we made when we came to live here. And but it's changed radically since then. We took it all apart and completely remade it in about 2007. And it's now very simple in many ways. It just has simple materials, corten steel, which has this wonderfully deep rust colour. And then we've used sandstone in little slips of paving, and then in larger pieces. But both have this soft reddish colour. And in the planting, we've got a lot of tulips in flower at the moment. That's just for a fairly short period. And then we have lots of salvias, and eryngium, which are like blue thistle. And you can see here now, forming the structure of the garden, these wonderful shapes of euphorbia. These are Euphorbia mellifera and Euphorbia pastorii, and there's one called Ceratocarpa, and then over there in the left-hand corner there is one called Margalidiana. And these give a kind of consistency and rhythm to the planting. So I hope you've enjoyed this little tour around the garden. I haven't shown everything, but just the main areas. And I hope you'll go and buy the book. Thank you.